mean, unfortunately, we do judge the book by its cover, even though we say we shouldn't, but we do. My question is, what do you notice? What will catch your attention if you find this person interesting or you would take a chance on? That's my question.
Uh, Voice,
Okay, voice. Anything else?
a decent appearance. I mean, um, clean.
Okay, good hygiene, good appearance, the way the person speaks. Okay.
So I just had a question. No, it's interesting. Haley said something very interesting, and I don't know if she's like a spokesperson for all females. I'd be very curious to hear about what other women think about that. But so if a guy has a nice voice, but
Mhm.
he looks like, I don't know, just a Pokemon
Agree.
character, you would prioritize his voice over.
Yeah, I mean, voice cannot be easily changed. Probably for the rest of his life, his voice probably remain probably not the same but similar. But the appearance can, we can do a lot of work on our appearance. We can work out. We can
True.
get.
All right. Mic check 1, 2. I think we're good with the mic. Okay. Chapter 36. Trying to help Jim. As soon as we reckoned everybody was asleep that night, we went down the lightning rod and shut ourselves up in the lean-to and got out our pile of foxfire and went to work. We cleared everything out of the way, about 4 or 5 foot along the middle of the bottom log. Tom said we was right behind Jim's bed now. We dig in under it, and when we got through there couldn't nobody in the cabin ever know there was any hole there, because Jim's counterpin hung down most to the ground, and you'd have to raise it up and look under to see the hole. So we dug and dug with the case knives till most midnight, and then we was dog tired and our hands was blistered, and yet you couldn't see we'd done anything hardly. At least I says, this ain't no 37-year-old job. This is a 39-year-old job, Tom Sawyer. He never said nothing, but he sighed, and pretty soon he stopped digging, and then for a good little while I know that he was thinking. Then he says, it ain't no use, Huck. It ain't going to work. It was prisoners, it would. If we was prisoners, it would, because when we'd have as many years as we wanted and no hurry, and we wouldn't get but a few minutes to dig every day. While they was changing watches, and so our hands couldn't get blistered, we could keep it up right along, year in and year out, and do it right, and the way it ought to be done. But we can't fool along. We got to rush. We ain't got no time to spare. If we was to put in another night, that was way we'd have to. If we was to put in another night this way, we'd have to knock off for a week to let our hands get well. Couldn't touch a case knife with them sooner. Well, then, what we gonna do, Tom? I'll tell you. It ain't right. It ain't no. I'll tell you. It ain't right, and it ain't moral, and I wouldn't like it to get out, but there ain't only just the one way. We got to dig him out with the picks and let on its case knives. Now you're talking, I says. Your head gets leveler and leveler all the time, Tom Sawyer, I says. Picks is the thing, moral or no moral, and as for me, I don't care shucks for morality of it, no how. When I start in When I start in to steal a nigger, or a watermelon, or a Sunday school book, I ain't no ways particular how it's done, so it's done. What I want is what I want is my nigger, or what I want is my watermelon, or what I want is my Sunday school book, and if it picks the handiest thing, that's the thing I'm gonna do. And if a pick's the handiest thing, that's the thing I going to dig that nigga, all that watermelon, all that Sunday school book. Oh, well, damn it. Read that one more time. That's the thing I'm a going to dig that nigga or that watermelon or that Sunday school book out with. And I don't give a dead rat what the authorities thinks about it, neither. Well, he says, there's excuse for picks and letting on in a case like this. If it weren't so, I wouldn't approve of it, or no, I wouldn't stay by and see the rules broke because right is wrong and wrong is wrong. And a body ain't got no business doing wrong when he ain't ignorant of knows better. It might answer for you to dig Jim out with a pick without any letting on, because you don't know no better. But it wouldn't for me because I do know better. Give me a case knife. He had his own by him, but I handed him mine, and he flung it down and says, give me a case knife. I didn't know just what to do, but then I thought. I scratched around, sorry, I scratched around amongst the old tools and got a pickaxe and gave it to him. And he took it and went to work and never said a word. He was always just that particular, full of principle. So then I got a shovel, and then we picked and shoveled, about. So then I got a shovel, and then we picked and shoveled, turned about, and made the fur fly. We stuck to it about half an hour, which was as long as we could stand up, but he had a good deal of a hole to show for it. When I got upstairs, I looked out at the window to see Tom doing his level best with the lightning rod, but he couldn't come in. His hands were so sore. At last he says, it ain't no use. It can't be done. What you reckon I better do? Can't you think of no can't you think of no way? Yes, I says, but I reckon it ain't regular. Come up the stairs and let on it's a lightning rod. So we done it. Next day, Tom stole a pewter spoon and a brass. Next day, Tom stole a pewter spoon and a brass candlestick in the house for to make some pins for Jim out of and 6 tallow candles. And I hung around the nigger cabins and lay for a chance and stole 3 tin plates. Tom says it wasn't enough, but I said nobody wouldn't ever see the plates that Jim throwed out because they'd fall in the dog fennel and Jim sent weeds under the window hole. Then we got tote them back and he could use them over again. So Tom was satisfied. Then he says, now, the thing to study out is how to get the things to Jim. Take them in the take them in through the hole, I says, when we get it done. He only just looked scornful and said something about nobody ever heard of such an idiotic idea, and then he went to studying. By and by he said he had ciphered out 2 or 3 ways, but there weren't no need to decide on any of them yet. He said we got to post Jim first. That night we went down the lightning rod. Excuse me. That night we went down the lightning rod a little after 10 and took one of the candles along and listened under the window hole and heard Jim snoring. So we pitched it in and didn't wake him. Then we whirled in with the pick and shovel, and in about 2 hours and a half the job was done. We crept in under Jim's bed and into the cabin and pawed around and found the candle and lit it, and stood over Jim a while and found him looking hearty and healthy, and then we woke him up gentle and gradual. He was so glad to see us he most cried, and called us honey, and all the pet names he could think of, and was for having us hunt up a cold chisel to cut the chain off his leg with right away, and clearing out without losing any time. But Tom, he showed him how unregular it would be, and sat down and told him all about our plans, and how we could alter them in a minute any time there was an alarm, and not to be the least afraid, because we would see he got away sure. So Jim, he said it was all right. And he sat there and talked over old times a while. And then Tom asked a lot of questions. And when Jim told him Uncle Silas come in every day or two to pray with him, and Aunt Sally come in to see if he was comfortable and had plenty to eat, and both of them was kind as they could be, Tom says, "Now I know how to fix it. We'll send you some things by them." I said, "Don't do nothing of the kind. It's one of the most jackass ideas I ever struck." But he never paid no attention to me. Went right on. It was his way when he'd got his plan set. So we told Jim how we'd have to smuggle in the rope ladder pie and other large things by Nat, the nigger that fed him. He must be on the lookout and not to be and he must be on the lookout and not be surprised and not let Nat see him open them. And we would put small things in Uncle's coat pockets, and he must steal them out. And we would tie things to Aunt's apron strings or put them in her apron pocket if we got a chance. And told them what they would be and what they was for. And told them how to keep a journal on the shirt with the I told him how to keep a journal on the shirt with his blood and all that. He told him everything. Jim, he couldn't see no sense in most of it, but he allowed we was white folks and know better than him. So he was satisfied and said he would do it all just as Tom said. Jim had plenty corn cob pipes and tobacco, so we had a right down good sociable time. Then we crawled out through the hole and so home to bed, with hands that looked like they'd been chawed. Tom was in high spirits. He said it was the best fun he ever had in his life, and the most intellectual, and said if he only could see his way to it, we would keep it up all the rest of our lives and leave Jim to our children to get out. For he believed Jim would come to like it better and better the more he got used to it. He said that in that way it could be strung out as too much as 80 year and would be the best time on record. And he said it would make us all celebrated that had and he said it would make us all celebrated that had a hand in it. In the morning we went out to the woodpile and chopped up the brass up In the morning we went out to the woodpile and chopped up the brass candlestick into handy sizes. And Tom put them and the Peter. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. I just ate. Maybe that's the reason problem why I can't read properly. And Tom put them and the pewter spoon in his pocket. Then we went to the nigger cabins, and while I got Nat's notice off, Tom shoved a piece of candlestick into the middle of a corn pone that was in Jim's pan, and we went along with Nat to see how it would work. And it just worked noble. When Jim bit into it, it most mashed all his teeth out, and there weren't ever anything could have worked better. Tom said so himself. Jim, he never let on, but it was only just a piece of rock or something like that that's always getting into bread, you know. But after that, he never bit into nothing but what he jived his fork into it in 3 or 4 places first. Now, whilst we was standing there in the diminished light, here comes a couple of hounds bulging in from under Jim's bed, and they kept on piling in till there was 11 of them, and there weren't hardly room in there to get your breath. By jings, we forgot to fasten the lean-to door. The nigger Nat, he only just hollered, "Witches!" once, and kneeled over onto the floor against the dogs, and begun to groan like he was dying. Tom jerked the door open and flung out a slab of Jim's meat, and the dogs went for it. And in 2 seconds, he was out himself and back again and shut the door. And I knowed he fixed the other door too. Then he went to work on the nigger, coaching him and petting him and asking him if he'd been imagining he saw something again. He raised up and blinked his eyes around and says, Marcy, you'll say I's Mars said, you'll say I's a fool. But if I didn't believe I see most a million dogs or devils or something, I wished I may die right here in these tracks. I did most surely. Mars said, I felt saw they was all over me. That fetch it. I just wished I could get my hands on one of them witches just once. Only just once. That's all I asked. But mostly I wish they'd let me alone, I does. Tom says, Well, I'll tell you what I think. What makes them come here just at this runaway nigger's breakfast time? It's because they're hungry. That's the reason. You make them a witch pie. That's the thing for you to do. But my landmark said, How's it going to make 'em a witch pie? I don't know how to make it. I ain't ever heard of such a thing before. Well then, I have to make it myself. Will you do it, honey? Will you? I'll walk up the ground under your foot, I will. All right, I'll see it. All right, I'll do it, seeing it's you, and you've been a good to us and showed us the runaway nigger. But you got to be mighty careful. When we come around, you turn your back, and then whatever we've put in the pan, don't you let on to see it at all. And don't you look when Jim up and don't you look when Jim unloads the pan. Something might happen. I don't know what. And above all, don't you handle the witch things. Handle 'em, Marcy? What is you talking about? I would have laid the way of my finger on 'em. Not for $1,000,000,000. I would. All right, let's go to chapter 39 because I already read these chapters. I had to record 36 because it didn't record my voice. So skip 39. And those will be uploaded or edited later on today or tomorrow, depending on the time. All right, where are we? 38. Okay, one more chapter. This thing loads pretty slow. Maybe because I have a lot of files in this phone. Okay, 1 second. And I can't skip through the chapter because this is a PDF. This is the actual copy of the book on here, so which is pretty cool. Did I skip it already? Okay, 39. All right, chapter 39. Tom writes anonymous. Tom writes anonymous letters. In the morning, we went up to the village and bought a wild rat trap and fetched it down and unstopped the best rat hole in about an hour. And we had 15 of the bulliest kind of thing ones. And then we took it and put it in a safe place under Aunt Sally's bed. But while we was gone for spiders, oh, wait a minute. Did I record it? Oh, 1 second. Let me make sure. 1 second. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I did skip some chapters. I have been recording for a while. Maybe I shouldn't have skipped these chapters. 1 second. So contents. Let's see. It's supposed to be 37, 38 today. Okay. Okay. I guess I did skip them. All right, my bad. Let's go back to 37 and 38. I swear I read them. Maybe I got a little bit ahead of myself. Forgive me. Oops. All right, 37. Oh, that's 38. No, that's 37. Okay. I'm sorry. Let's go back to chapter 37. All right. Get situated here. Let's continue reading. All right. Am I still good? All right. All right. Chapter 37. Jim gets his witch pie. That was all fixed. So then we went away and went to the rubbish pile in the backyard where they keep the old boots and rags and pieces of bottles that wore out tin things. and all such struck and scratched around the found an old tin washpan and stopped up the holes as well as we could to bake in the pie. I took it down the cellar and stole it full of flour and started for breakfast, and found a couple of shingle nails that Tom said would be handy for a prisoner to scrabble his name and sorrows on the dungeon wall with, and dropped one of them in Aunt Sally's apron pocket, which was hanging on a chair, and the other was stuck in the band of Uncle Silas's hat, which was on the bureau, because we heard the children say their pa and ma was on going. Wait, because we heard the children say their pa and ma was going to runaway nigger's house this morning, and then went to breakfast. And Tom dropped the pewter spoon in Uncle Silas's coat pocket, and Aunt Sally wasn't come yet, so we had to wait a little while. And then she was And when she come, she was hot and red and cross and couldn't hardly wait for the blessing. And then she went to sluicing out coffee with one hand and cracking the handiest child's head with a thimble with the other, and says, I've hunted high and I've hunted low, and it does beat all what has become of your other shirt. My heart fell down amongst my lungs and livers and things. I had a piece of corn crust started down my throat after it, and got met on the road with a cough, and was shot across the table, and took one of the children in the eye, and curled him up like a fishing worm, and let a cry out of him like the size of a war whoop. And Tom he turned kind of blue, and and Tom he turned kinder blue and around the gills, and it all amounted to a considerable state of things for about a quarter of a minute, or as much as that. And I could have sold out for half price if there was a bidder. But after that was all right. But of, but after that was all right again, and it was the sudden surprise of it that knocked us so kind of cold. Uncle Silas he says, "It's most uncommon curious. I can't understand it. I know perfectly well I took it off because you ain't got but one. Just listen at the man. I know you took it off, and know it by a better way than you wool gathered memory, too, because it was on the clothesline yesterday. I see them myself, but it's gone. That's the long and the short of it, and you'll just have to change to a red flannel one till and you have to change to a red flannel one till I get time to make a new one. And it'll be the third I've made in 2 years. It just keeps a body on the jump to keep you in shuts. Whatever you do manage to do with sorry. And whatever you do manage to do with them all is more I can make out. A body think you would learn to take some sort of care of them at your time of life. That's to me that's insane, or it's foreign to me that the wives or women in the past made most of the clothes for the family, which is kind of cool. We don't have that luxury no more. I know it, Sally, and I do try to. My bad. I know it, Sally, and I do try all I can, but it's ought to be altogether my fault because, I don't see them nor had nothing to do with them except when they're on me, and I don't believe I've ever lost one of them off of me. Well, it ain't your fault if I haven't, Silas. You'd have done it if you could, I reckon, and the shit ain't all that gone, nuther. There's a spoon gone, and that ain't all. There was 10, and now there's only 9, and the calf got the shirt, I reckon, but the calf never took the spoon, that's certain. Why, what else is gone, Sally? There's 6 candles gone, that's what. The rats could have got the candles, I reckon they did. I wonder they don't walk off with the whole place, the way you've always got to stop the holes and don't do it. And if they weren't fools, they'd sleep in your hair. Silas, you never find it. And if they weren't fools, they'd sleep in your hair, Silas. You'd never find it out. But you can't lay the spoon on the rats, and that I know. Well, Sally, I'm in fault, and I acknowledge it. I've been remiss, but I won't let tomorrow go by without stopping up them holes. Oh, I wouldn't hurry next year, do? Sorry. Oh, I wouldn't hurry next year'll do. Matilda Angelina Amarita Phelps. Whack comes in the thimble, and the child snatches her claws out of the sugar bowl without fooling her. All right, let me hear that again. But tell the Angelina I'm Loretta Phelps. Whack comes in the thimble, and the child snatches her claws out of the sugar bowl without fooling around again. Whack comes the thimble, and the child snatches her claws out of the sugar bowl without fooling around any. Then, just then, the nigger woman steps onto the passage and says, Missus, there's a sheet gone. A sheet gone? Well, for the land's sake. I'll, s- I'll stop the, I'll stop up the holes today, says Uncle Silas, looking sorrowful. Oh, do shut up. Suppose the rats took the sheet. Where's it gone, Lizzie? Clara to goodness, I ain't no. Sorry. Clara to goodness, I ain't no. Not. Clara to goodness, I ain't no notion, Miss Sally. She was on the clothesline yesterday, but she done gone. She ain't there no more now. I reckon the world is coming to an end. I never see the beat of it in all my born days. A shirt, a sheet, and a spoon, and six Mrs. Common, Mrs. comes a young yellow wench. They a brass candlestick. My bad. I gotta read that one more time. A shirt, a sheet, and a spoon, and six Mrs. comes a young yellow wench. There's a brass candlestick missing. Clear out from here, you hussy, or I'll take God skid it to you. Well, she was just a villain. Begun to lay you for a chance, I reckon I would sneak out and got for the woods till the weather moderated. She kept a raging right along, running her insurrection all by herself, and everybody else mighty meek and quiet. And at at last Uncle Silas looked kind of foolish, fishes up that spoon out of his pocket. She stopped, with her mouth open and her hands up. And as for me, I wish I was in Jerusalem or somewheres. But not long because he says, it's just as I expected. So you had it in your pocket all the time. And and like as not, you'll oh man. One second. I'll swing up before people look in. Where was that? Mic check, mic check. We're still good? Okay. We're still good. Hey. Should read that again. Where was that? She stopped with her mouth open and her hands up, and as for me, I wish I was in Jerusalem or somewheres, but not long because she says, it's just as I expected. So you had it in your pocket all the time. And lot as not as you've got the other things there too. How to get there? I really don't know, Sally. I really don't know, Sally, he says, kind of apologizing. Or I would tell. I was a studying over my text in Acts 17 before breakfast, and I reckon I put it in there, not noticing because, no. And I reckon I put it in there, not noticing, meaning to put my testament in, and it must be so because my testament ain't in. But I go and see, and if the testament is where I had it, I know I didn't put it in. And what? And that will show that I laid the testament down. That will I show that I laid the testament down and took up the spoon and oh, for the land's sake, give a body a rest. Go along now, the whole kit and bilin'. Go along now, the whole kit of bilin' of you, and don't come nigh me again till I've got back my peace of mind. I'd have heard her if she'd have said it to herself, let alone speaking it out, and I got up and obeyed her if I'd have been dead. As we was passing through the setting room, the old man he took up his hat and the shingle nail fell out of the floor, and he just merely picked it up and laid it on the mantel shelf and never said nothing and went on. I never said nothing and went out. But I never said nothing and went out. Tom see him do it and remembered about the spoon and says, well, It ain't no use to send things by him no more. He ain't reliable. He ain't reliable. Then he says, but he done us a good turn with a spoon, anyway, without knowing it. And so we'll go and do him one without him knowing it. Stop up his rat holes. There was a noble good lot of them down cellar, and it took us a whole hour, but we done that job tight and good and ship shape. Then we heard steps on the stairs and blowed out our light and hid, and here comes the old man with a candle in one hand and a bundle of stuff in the other, looking as absent-minded as his year before last. And he went a mooning around, first to one rabbit hole, then another, till he'd been to them all, and then he stood about 5 minutes, picking tallow drip off his candle and thinking. Then he turns off slow and dreamy towards the stairs, saying, well, for the life of me, I can't remember when I done it. I could have showed her now that I weren't to blame on account of the rats. But never mind, let it go. I reckon it wouldn't do no good. And so he went on a mumbling upstairs, and then we left. He was a mighty nice old man, and always is. Tom was a good deal bothered about what to do for a spoon, but he said we'd got to have it. So he took a think. So he took a think. When he had ciphered it out, and he told me how he was to do, then we went and waited around spoon basket till we see Aunt Sally coming. And then Tom went to counting the spoons and laying them out to one side, and slid one of them up my sleeve, and Tom says, why, Aunt Sally, there ain't but 9 spoons yet, she says. Go along to your play, and don't bother me. I know better. I counted myself. Well, I counted them twice, Auntie, and I can't make but 9. She took out of all she looked out of all patience, but I she looked out of all patience, but of course she come to count. Anybody would. I declare to gracious there ain't but 9, she says. Why, what in the world? Plague take the things I'll come out. Plague take the things I'll count again. So I slid back the one I had. And when she got done counting, she says, hang the troublesome rubbish. There's 10 now. And she looked huffy and bothered both. But Tom says, why, Auntie, I don't think there's 10. You numbskull, didn't you see me count 'em? I know, but, well, I'll count 'em again. So I smouched one, and they come out 9, same as the other time. Well, she was in a tearing way, just a trembling all over, and she was so mad. But she counted and counted till she got that addled she'd start to count in the basket for a spoon sometimes, and so 3 times they come out right, and 3 times they come out wrong. Then she grabbed up the basket and slammed it across the house and knocked out the cat. Sorry. Then she grabbed up the basket and slammed it across the house and knocked the cat galley west. And she said clear out and let her have some peace, and if we come bothering around her again betwixt that and dinner, she'd skin us. So we had the odd spoon and dropped it in her apron pocket whilst she was a giving us our sailing orders, and Jim got it all right, along with her shingle nail before noon. We was very well satisfied with this business, and Tom allowed it was worth twice the trouble it took because he said now she couldn't ever count them spoons twice alike again to save her life. And one believed she'd counted them right if she did. That and said that after she'd about counted her head off for the next 3 days, he judged she'd give it up and offer to kill anybody that wanted her to ever count them any more. So we put the sheet back on the line that night and stole one out of a closet and kept on putting it back and stealing it again for a couple of days till she didn't know how many sheets she had any more. And she didn't care and weren't a going to bullyrag the rest of us so about it. And without count, and wouldn't count them again not to save her life. She'd rather die first. So we was all right now. As to the shirt and to as to the shirt and the sheet and the spoon and the candles, by the help of the calf and the rats and the mixed up counting, and as to the candlestick, it weren't no consequence, it would blow over by and by. But that pie was a job, and we had no end of trouble with the pie. We had no end of trouble with that pie. We fixed we fixed it up away down in the woods and cooked it there, and we got it done at last and very satisfactory. Sorry. One second. I need to adjust myself. I'm so uncomfortable right now. Looks so good. Oops. Forgot to flip it back. I gotta lock my screen. Okay. And we got it done at last, and very satisfactory too, but not in one day. And we had to use up 3 wash pans full of flour before we got through. And we burnt pretty much all over in places, and eyes put out with the smoke because you see, we didn't want nothing but a crust, and we couldn't prop it up right. And she would always cave in. But of course, we thought of the right way at last, which was to cook the latter too in the pie. And then we laid in with Jim that second night and tore up the sheet and all and tore up the sheet. Wait, what was that? So then we laid in with Jim the second night and tore up the sheet all in little strings and twisted them together. And long before daylight, we had a lovely rope that could have hung a person with. And let on it took 9 months to make it. And in the forenoon, we took it down to the woods, but it wouldn't go into the pie. Being made of cool being made of a whole sheet that way, there was rope enough for the 40 pies if you had wanted them, and plenty left over the soup and sausage, or anything you choose. You could have had a whole dinner, but we didn't need it. All we needed was just enough for the pie, so we throw the rest away. We didn't cook 9 of the pies in the washpan, afraid the soldier would melt. But Uncle Silas, he had a noble brass warming pan, which he thought considerable of because it belonged to one of his ancestors with a long wooden handle. They come over from England with William the Conqueror in the Mayflower or one of them early ships and was hid away up the garret with a lot of other old pots and things that was valuable. Not on account of being any account because they weren't, but on account of them being relics, and you would snaked her out private. I took her down there, but she failed on the first pies because we didn't know how. But she come up smiling on the last one. We took a we took and lined her with dough and set her in the coals and loaded her up with a rag rope and put on the dough roof and shut down the lid and put hot embers on top and stood off 5 foot with a long handle, cool and comfortable. In 15 minutes she turned out pie. And in 15 minutes she turned out a pie that was a satisfaction to look at. But the persons that it wouldn't want to fetch a couple of kegs of toothpicks along, for it that rope ladder wouldn't cramp him down to business. I don't know nothing what I'm talking about, and lay him in enough stomach ache to last him till next time too. That didn't look that didn't look when we put the witch pie in Jim's pan, and we put the 3 tin plates in the bottom of the pan under the victuals. And so Jim got everything all right. And as soon as we found my and as soon as he was by himself, he busted into the pie and hid the rope ladder inside of his straw tick and scratched some marks on the tin plate and throwed it out the window hole. All right, so I think they're one step closer into saving Jim. 1 second, I'll be right back.
mean, unfortunately, we do judge the book by its cover, even though we say we shouldn't, but we do. My question is, what do you notice? What will catch your attention if you find this person interesting, or you would take a chance on? That's my question.
Voice.
Okay, voice. Anything else?
A decent appearance. I mean, clean.
Okay, good hygiene, good appearance, the way the person speaks. Okay.
So I just had a question. No, it's interesting. Haley said something very interesting, and I don't know if she's like a spokesperson for all females. I'd be very curious to hear about what other women think about that. But so if a guy has a nice voice, but he looks like, I don't know, just a Pokemon character, you would prioritize his voice over.
Yeah, I mean, voice cannot be easily changed. Probably for the rest of his life, his voice probably remain probably not the same but similar. But the appearance can, we can do a lot of work on our appearance. We can work out. We can get a good hairstyle. We can try to improve our sense of fashion, etc. As long as it's not something, it's not like Mission Impossible. Yeah, there are a lot of work we can do.
Okay, that's a fair point. I like that.
Like Matt, from the beginning I said, I think you was not there at that time, but at the beginning I said the psychology depends, in the relationship is that men believe in what they see, what is in front of their eyes. That's why women used to have makeups. And what women believe is what women have to listen. What woman listens from someone's mouth. As you talk about like the tone and the Pokemon character, that was nice. So that's why men used to spoke so much lies, and women used to have so much makeups.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. I've heard that before, but
yeah, for men, it's like the men met to someone. What the man sees probably her authenticity, her confidence. Okay, the eye contact and how she presents herself, and it depends on the hygiene, and what the man.
I mean, unfortunately, we do judge the book by its cover, even though we say we shouldn't, but we do. My question is, what do you notice? What will catch your attention if you find this person interesting, or you would take a chance on? That's my question.
Voice.
Voice. Anything else?
A decent appearance. I mean, clean.
Okay, good hygiene, good appearance, the way the person speaks. Okay.
So I just had a question. No, it's interesting. Haley said something very interesting, and I don't know if she's like a spokesperson for all females. I'd be very curious to hear about what other women think about that. But so if a guy has a nice voice, but he looks like, I don't know, just a Pokemon character, you would prioritize his voice over.
Yeah, I mean, voice cannot be easily changed. Probably for the rest of his life, his voice probably remain probably not the same but similar. But the appearance can, we can do a lot of work on our appearance. We can work out. We can get a good hairstyle. We can try to improve our sense of fashion, etc. As long as it's not something, it's not like Mission Impossible. Yeah, there are a lot of work we can do.
Okay, that's a fair point. I like that.
Like Matt, from the beginning I said, I think you was not there at that time, but at the beginning I said the psychology depends, in the relationship is that men believe in what they see, what is in front of their eyes. That's why women used to have makeups. And what women believe is what women have to listen. What woman listens from someone's mouth. As you talk about like the tone and the Pokemon character, that was nice. So that's why men used to spoke so much lies, and women used to have so much makeups.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. I've heard that before, but
yeah, for men, it's like the men met to someone. What the man sees probably her authenticity, her confidence. Okay, the eye contact and how she presents herself, and it depends on the hygiene, and what the man.
I mean, unfortunately, we do judge the book by its cover, even though we say we shouldn't, but we do. My question is, what do you notice? What will catch your attention if you find this person interesting, or you would take a chance on? That's my question.
Voice,
Okay, voice. Anything else?
a decent appearance. I mean, clean.
Okay, good hygiene, good appearance, the way the person speaks. Okay.
So I just had a question. No, it's interesting. Haley said something very interesting, and I don't know if she's like a spokesperson for all females. I'd be very curious to hear about what other women think about that. But so if a guy has a nice voice,
All right, back. Chapter 38. Here, a captive heart busted. Making them pens was a distressing job. Making them pens was a distressing tough job. And so was the saw. And Jim allowed the inscription was going to be the toughest of all. That's the one which the prisoner had to scribble on the wall. But he had to have it. Tom said he'd got to, and there weren't no case of state prisoner that scribbling his inscription. Let's go back. There weren't no case of a state prisoner not scribbling his inscription to leave behind in his coat of arms. Look at Lady Jane Grey, he says. Look at Guilford. No, look at Guilford Dudley. Look at the Northumberland. Why, Huck, suppose it's considerable trouble. What you going to do? How you going to get around it? Jim's got to do his inscription and coat of arms. They all do, Jim says. Why, Marse Tom, I ain't got no coat of arms. I ain't got nothing but this old shirt, and you knows I can't keep the and you knows I got to keep the gin on that. Oh, you don't understand, Jim. A coat of arms is very different. Well, I says, Jim's right anyway, when he says he ain't got no coat of arms because he ain't. I reckon I know that, Tom says. But you bet you'll have one before he goes out of this, because he's going outright, and there ain't going to be no flaws in his record. So whilst me and Jim filed away at the pens on a brick a piece, Jim making his in right, Jim a making his out of the brass and making mine out of a spoon. Tom set to work to think out the coat of arms. By and by, he said he struck so many good ones he didn't hardly know which to take, but there was one which he reckoned he'd decide on. He says, on the solution, we'll have a band or in the Dexter base, Southside Murray in the fifth. On the solution, we'll have a band or in the Dexter base, Southside Murray in the feast. Southside Murray in the fest, with the dog, Cochon, for the common charge, and under his foot a chain in battle for slavery, with a chevron vet in a sheaf engrailed, and 3 invected lines on a field azure, with the nombro points rampant. On a dancé indented crest, a runaway nigger, Sable, with his bundle over his shoulder on the bar sinister, and a couple of ghouls for supporters, which is you and me. Motto, Maggiore fretta, minore atto. Got it out of a book, means the more haste, the less speed. Gee Wilkins, I says, but what does the rest of it mean? We ain't got no time to bother over that, he says. We got to dig in like all get out. Well, anyway, I says, what's some of it? What's a fess? A fess? A fess is. You don't need to know what a fess is. I'll show him how to make it when he gets to it. Shucks, Tom, I says, I think you might tell a person what's a boss sinister. Oh, I don't know, but he's got to have it. All the nobility does. That was just his way. If it didn't suit him to explain a thing to you, he wouldn't do it. You might pump him, you might pump at him a week. It wouldn't make no difference. He's got all that coat of arms business fixed, so now he started in to finish up the rest of that part of the work, which was to plan out a mournful inscription. Said Jim got to have one, like they all done. He made up a lot and wrote them out on He made up a lot and wrote them out on a paper and read them off. So, 1. Here a captive heart busted. 2. Here a poor prisoner, forsook by the world and friends fretted his sorrowful life. 3. Here a lonely heart broke and worn spirit went to its rest after 37 years of solitary captivity. 4. Here, homeless and friendless, after 37 years of bitter captivity, perished a noble stranger, natural son of Louis XIV. Tom's voice trembled whilst he was reading them, and he most broke down. When he got done, he couldn't say no way, make up his mind which one for Jim to scrabble onto the wall. They was all so good, but at last he allowed he would let him scrabble them all on. Jim said it would take him a year to scrabble such a lot of truck onto the logs with a nail. He said he didn't know. He said he didn't know how to make them letters. Sorry. He didn't know how to make letters, besides, but Tom said he would block them out for him, and then he would have noticed. And then he wouldn't have nothing to do but just follow the lines. Then pretty soon he says, come to think, the logs ain't a going to do. They don't have log walls in the dungeon. We got to dig the inscriptions into a rock. We'll fetch a rock. Jim said the rock was worse than the logs. He said it would take him such a pison long time to dig them into a rock he wouldn't ever get out. But Tom said he would let him help him do it. Then he took a look to see how me and Jim was getting along with the pens. It was most pesky, tedious work. It was most pesky, tedious, hard work and slow, and didn't give my hands no show to get well of the shoals. And didn't give my hands no show to get well of the souls. And we didn't seem to make no headway, hardly. So Tom says, I know how to fix it. We got to have a rock for the coat of arms and mournful inscriptions, and we can kill two birds with that same rock. There's a gaudy big grindstone down at the mill, and we'll smooch it and carve the things on it and file out the pens and the saw on it too. It weren't no slouch of an idea, and it weren't no such a grindstone nuther, but we allowed we'd tackle it. It weren't quite midnight yet, so we cleared out for the mill, leaving Jim at work. We smelt We smooched the grindstone and set out the roll host home, but it was a most nation tough job. Sometimes do what we could, and we couldn't keep her from falling over, and she come mighty near mashing us every time. Tom said she was going to get one of us, sure, but we got through. We got her halfway, and then we was plumb played out, and most drowned with sweat. We see it weren't no use. We got to go and fetch Jim. So he raised up his bed and slid the chain off the bed leg and wrapped it round and round his neck. And we crawled out through her hole and down there, and Jim and me laid into that grindstone and walked her along like nothing. And Tom superintended. He could out he could out superintended anybody I ever see. He knowed how to do everything. Our hole was pretty big, but it weren't big enough to get the grindstone through. But Jimmy took the pick and soon made it big enough. And then Tom marked out them things on it. Then Tom marked out them things on it with the nail and set Jim to work on them with the nail for a chisel and an iron bolt from the rubbish and the lean-to for a hammer. And told him to work till the rest of his candle quit on him, and then he could go to bed and hit and and hide the grindstone under his straw tick and sleep on it. Then we helped him fix his chain back on the bed leg and was ready for bed ourselves, but Tom thought of something and says, "You got any spiders in here, Jim?" "No, sir. Thank to goodness. I ain't, Marse Tom." "All right. We'll get you some." "But bless you, honey, I don't want one." "But bless you, honey, I don't want none. I's afeard of 'em. I's afeard of 'em. I just soon have rattlesnakes around." Tom thought a minute or two and says, "It's a good idea, and I reckon it's been done. It must have been. It must have been done. It stands to reason. It stands to reason. Yes, it's a prime good idea. Where could you keep it? Where could you keep it?" "Keep what, Marse Tom?" "Why, rattlesnake." "De goodness gracious alive, Marse Tom! Why, if there was a rattlesnake come in here, I'd take him bust right into that log wall, and I would him with my head." "Why, Jim, you wouldn't be afraid of it after a little. You could tame it." "Tame it?" "Yes, easy enough. Every animal is grateful for kindness and petting, and they wouldn't think of hurting a person that pets them. Any book will tell you that. You try. That's all I ask. Just try for 2 or 3 days. Why, you can get him so in a little while that you'll love. Why, you can get him so in a little while that he'll love you and sleep with you, and won't stay away from you a minute, and will let you wrap him around your neck and put his head in your mouth." "Please, Marse Tom, don't talk so. I can't stand it. I let him shove his head in my mouth. A favor ain't it?" "What?" "He let me shove his head in my mouth for a favor. Hate it. Ain't it? Hate it. That's the word. He let me shove his head in my mouth for a favor. Ain't it? I let he wait a powerful long time before I asked him. And more than that, I don't want him to sleep with me." "Jim, don't act so foolish. A prisoner's got to have some kind of a dumb pet, and if a rattlesnake ain't ever been tried, there's more glory to be gained in your there's more glory to be gained in your being the first to ever try it than any other way you could ever think of to save your life." "Why, Marse Tom, I don't want no such glory." Sorry. "Why, Marse Tom, I don't want no such glory. Snake take and bite Jim's chin off, then why?" Then why is the okay? "Snake take and bite Jim's chin off, then why is the glory? No, sir, I don't want no such doings. No, sir, I don't want man. No, sir, I don't want no such doings. Blame it, can you try? I only want you to try. You need to keep it up if you don't work." "But the trouble all done if the snake bite me while is a trying him. Marse Tom, I's willing to tackle most anything, cause Marse Tom, Marse Tom, I's willing to tackle most anything that ain't unreasonable. But if you ever most man, I can't read. Marse Tom, I's willing to tackle most anything that ain't unreasonable. But if you and Huck fetches a rattlesnake in here for me to tame, I's going to leave. That's sure." "Well, then, let it go, let it go. If you're so bullheaded about it, we can get you some garter snakes, and you can tie some buns on their tails and let on they're rattlesnakes, and I reckon that'll have to do. I can start them, Marse Tom, but blame me if I couldn't get along without 'em. I tell you that. I never know before just was much bother. Trouble be a prisoner." "Well, it always is when it's done right. You got any rats around here?" "Well, I'll get you some rats." "Why, Marse Tom, I don't want no rats. Dey's the damn blimmitest critters to disturb a body and wrestle round and rustle round over him, right, and rustle over him about his feet and when he's trying to sleep I ever see. No, sir, give me garter snakes if I got to have 'em, but don't give me no rats. I ain't got no use for 'em, scacely." "But, Jim, you got to have 'em. They all do. So don't make no fuss about it. Prisoners ain't ever without rats. There ain't no instance of it, and they train them and pet them and learn them tricks, and they get to be as sociable as flies. But you got to play music to them. You got anything to play music on? I ain't got nothing but a coach comb and a piece of paper and a juice hop, but I reckon they wouldn't take no stock in a juice hop. Yes, they would. They don't care what kind of music 'tis. A juice hop plenty good enough for a brat. All animals like music. In a prison, they don't on it, especially painful music, and you can't get no other kind out of a juice hop. It's always interest them, and they come out to see what's the matter with you. Yes, you're all right. You're fixed very well. You want to sit on your bed nights before you go to sleep, and early in the mornings and play your juice harp. Play "The Last Link is Broken." That's the thing that'll scoop a rat quicker than anything else. And when you play it about 2 minutes, you'll see all rats and the snakes and the spiders and things begin to feel worried about you and come, and they'll just fairly swarm over you and have a noble good time. Yes, they will, I reckon, Marse Tom, but what kind of time is Jim having? Bless if I can see the pint, but I'll do it if I got to. I reckon I better keep the animal satisfied and have no trouble in the house. Tom waited to think it over and see if there wasn't nothing else, and pretty soon he says, "Oh, there's one thing I forgot. Could you raise a flower here, do you reckon?" I don't I don't know about I don't know, but maybe I could, Marse Tom. But it's tolerable dark in here, and ain't got no use for no flower, nohow, and she'd be a powerful sight of trouble. Well, he tried anyway. Some other prisoners had done it. Sorry. Yeah. Some other prisoners had done it. One of them big cat-tail looking mullein stalks would grow in here, Marse Tom, I reckon, but she would be worth half the trouble she'd cross. Sorry. Mar let's read that again. One of them big cat-tail looking mullein stalks would grow in here, Marse Tom, I reckon, but she would be worth half the trouble she caused. Don't you believe it? We'll fetch you a little one, and you plant it in the corner over there and raise it. And don't call it a mullein. And don't call it mullein. Call it pic- piccola. Piccola? What? Piccola. Piccola. Piccola? I don't know. I can't read. Is that Italian? Call it piccolia. 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 Call it piccolia. That its right name. That's its right name when it's in a prison. And you want to water it with your tears. Why, I got plenty spring water, Marse Tom. You don't want spring water. You want to water it with your tears. It's the way they always do. Why, Marse Tom, I lay a kind of raised one of them mullein stalks twisted with spring water while another man's starting one with tears. That ain't the idea. You got to do it with tears. She'll dime, she'll dime my hands, Marse Tom. She sure will. Case I don't scarcely ever cry. So Tom was stumped, but he studied it over and then said Jim would have to worry along best he could with an onion. Yeah, these kids, man. He promised he would go to the nigger cabins and drop one private in Jim's coffee pot in the morning. And Jim said he would just as soon have a tobacco in his coffee. I found so much fault with it, and with his work and bother of raising the mullein, and Jews hopping the rats, and petting and flattering up the snakes and spiders and things on top of all the other work he had to do on pens and inscriptions and journals, and things which made it more trouble and worry and responsibility to be a prisoner than anything he ever undertook. That Tom most lost all patience with him, and said he was just loaded down with more gaudier chances than a prisoner ever had in the world to make a name for himself. And yet he didn't know enough to appreciate them, and they was just about wasted on him. So Jim he was sorry, and said he wouldn't behave so no more. And then me and Tom shoved for bed. these these kids are a menace. They could have helped Jim escape so many times already, but they're just now playing games. And the funny part is, Jim is playing along with them. It's getting ridiculous. Jesus. All right. I'm going to end it here. I stumbled a lot, but I will do a post edit and individually upload each chapter. Without me, you can only hear me stumble, but then again, this is a live stream, so you can hear me read live. But yes. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Appreciate you, the those that listened. And if you haven't liked or subscribed, please like and subscribe. And thank you. And hopefully you'll tune in next time. Have a good day, good afternoon, good night.